Part One-on-One with Mr. Burgher.
Welcome to Art One-on-One. I'm your pod boss, Nichole Jordan, alongside your professional artist and master educator, Mr. Burgher.
We are here. Back again.
Same thing you always say.
That's not the same thing I always say.
It is.
I say different things every time.
Why don't you go back and review what you say each time, and then get back to us on that one.
Okay. I'm pretty sure I say different things periodically. I think I look like Kevin Nash's long lost cousin with this new hairstyle.
I don't remember what Kevin Nash looks like, so I think you're just obsessed with Kevin Nash, so you find things.
And why wouldn't I be?
I don't know. I don't know him well enough to know whether he's a good role model or not. I mean, I enjoy listening to his podcast, but I don't know him as a person. So.
Well, we don't hang on the weekends. I mean, but I would.
I'm sure you would. I'm sure you would. That makes me think of I'm going to jump into a different section today because it makes me think of this. And you talking about, like, the creepiness of, like, I think you would stalk Kevin Nash if you could.
I'm not like, that's the thing. Like, I've never been, like, obsessed with, like, celebrities. I've never been. You
are definitely obsessed with Kevin Nash. I mean, sorry, but you are. Not in a weird, creepy way. I was just being funny, but.
I wouldn't, like, for example, I like, like old school pro wrestling. I like Hulk Hogan. I like Kevin Nash. I like a lot of those personalities. If I saw Hulk Hogan in public, I would be like, I'd say, hey, but it's not like I wouldn't necessarily want their autograph or.
I don't know I don't know that that's what the example is of being obsessed. You're constantly talking about Kevin Nash and what his podcast says and.
I mean, I'm a fan. I'm interested in his perspective. I agree with his perspective, but I don't think that, like, like if a celebrity walked into the room, it's not like I'd be like, oh my gosh, it's a celebrity. Like, I've been in the room with some pretty important people in the world, and it's just which is cool. It's unique, but it's not like it's a, like, you go nuts over it.
I can't, like, if I meant, like, I've met two people, and I definitely took the opportunity to meet with them and talk with them and try to get pictures with them, and I achieved both of them, which were who? Snoop.
And Bill Murray.
Equally two of my, I don't know which one I would say was, they're so different, but yeah, I love the experiences the same. It was amazing. And
I've met with, I've been in the same room as presidents, multiple presidents. I've been introduced to famous celebrities, like the most famous actor that I've ever met.
Give me initials.
Give
me initials.
The sad thing is,
I'm just not good at this.
I know your silly little story.
I'll know the minute you give me initials.
Ashton Kutcher.
Well, why don't you give me his initials?
We're not playing guessing games.
You know what I was thinking of? The story, they're not going to know this, but you're talking about Brody the other day, and that's who I had in my head with the football experience.
Oh, with George Kittle?
Yeah.
George.
That's what I couldn't get that on my head once you said.
Well, that's not my story.
I do know Ashton. I know, but I couldn't get that.
Well, and Ashton Kutcher's sister and I went to the University of Northern Iowa together, and we met through his sister, and quite frankly, I didn't know who he was.
Well, he was just early on.
It was very early in his career, but he had still been in movie. I think he was in a movie, maybe, definitely the TV show at that point.
What's that called? That 70s?
That 70s show.
Yeah.
And so I met him, and we, exchanged conversations and so on, but
I thought you were going to say exchange numbers.
We did not exchange numbers. we were not. No, we did not exchange numbers. But again, through his sister and all of that, like that, it was.
So because we're on the subject of stalkers,
right?
And you being a stalker,
apparently, which I don't see. this being
okay. That I'm being funny.
I'm not.
That's not truth. I'm not. This is me being funny. You're not a stalker.
I would not go to his house
if I
or like one of those. Remember those those guys that were like in NASA and they put on diapers and drove across the country and didn't want to stop. And remember this several years ago, they went bananas and they were stalking people and. There was
for what?
For what reason? I don't remember. It was long ago. It was long enough that I don't remember the details, but it was short enough that I remember people from NASA wearing diapers to drive across to stalk somebody or something. Anyway, it doesn't matter.
That sounds like the craziest, dumbest story I've ever heard of.
It was a dumb story, but
okay. Well, so the stalking part of our conversation leads me right into our Ask the Art Guides. Our stalking conversation leads me right into Ask the Art Guides.
Easy for you to say.
No, apparently not. So
right.
I pulled
dun, 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 dun.
Sophie Calle.
Sophie Calle.
Yes.
I'll be honest. I
don't know Sophie Calle.
Don't know Sophie Calle. Don't know Sophie Calle at all.
She's a very interesting character. A very interesting character. So what I learned about her is that she did a lot of, she was struggling kind of with art and what to do. And so she started just people watching.
Okay.
She would go out into the public, she would people watch, and then she would go back, use the photos, and she would write these imaginary stories of these people that she was watching.
Imaginary stories of the people she was
she would make up the story. Looking at the photograph, she would make up this imaginary story about what she thought this person was like or what their life looked like or whatnot. She was a photographer, a writer. I don't know what all she did, but it sounds like she dabbled into everything. But
she sounds like a psychopath.
Well, honestly, she talks about in the interview of the video I watched about her, she talks about getting attached to these people and then wanting to learn more about them and following them, and, which is the definition of, I would say, stalking people.
Yeah.
Yikes. But I think it's cool, the photos that she took and
But isn't that illegal?
Apparently not, because on this video they were showing the photographs that she took, and then she'd come back and say she'd journal about it. She worked at a hotel, and then she didn't focus on people in the hotel. She focused on the objects, but she would look at the objects that were in the room and then write what she thought about. So she would break into
people's rooms?
No, she worked there.
But she still got into people's rooms.
She's cleaning people's rooms. She's taking towels to people. She's whatever she's doing. I don't know what she's doing, but
she's taking photos of the inside of their room while they're...
Yeah, so how is... Okay, that was one question that came up to me. How is that... So you can just take pictures of random people and use them for your art and to display that and not get their permission?
No. I would think that you own your image and your likeness and your... it's like those college kids that are making millions of dollars, like Caitlin Clark.
Yeah.
She's making millions off of her face and her likeness and her endorsement of products and companies.
But people can take pictures of her and talk about it and post it on their social media.
You're right. People can take a picture of her or Shaquille O'Neal or the President of the United States or any, a Kevin Nash. If I saw Kevin Nash, I could take his picture, but because they're celebrities. But if I'm walking, I wouldn't call myself a celebrity.
Oh my God. You're far from a damn celebrity.
I am.
Sometimes.
And if I'm walking down the street and somebody just takes a random photo of me, I don't think they can do that.
Well, that was my question, because they're showing these pictures that she's taking of these people that she's just watching. She's just people watching. She brings back these photos, she writes about them, and that is part of what her art is. It
sounds psychotic and it sounds illegal.
Well, they a lot of people would coin her as nutty. That's honestly but I seriously was questioning, where do you draw the line with that? When it's okay and when it's not, and when you have to get their permission and when you don't? Because clearly she wasn't getting their permission.
Well, if you're checked into a hotel and somebody knocks on your door and they say, yeah, room service, can I take your picture? What the hell?
She wasn't taking their picture. Like the hotel, I told you she was just taking objects. So,
but she was still taking photos.
Correct.
Of their things.
Right.
While they were paying to be in a room.
Yeah.
That's
maybe this video isn't. It seems like a pretty legit video.
Still.
You don't think that would be acceptable nowadays? Maybe it was acceptable.
Having in the past couple of years worked in the hotel industry, right? The good people at for the major chain that I worked for would very much frown upon anyone going into a guest's room and taking any sort of photograph, let alone of their luggage or their personal objects.
About, like, she's literally telling the story of this nightgown laying on the bed, and then she takes a picture, and it gives her this inspiration and this idea of what this person is and what their life looks like. And
yeah, it sounds illegal to me.
No,
so
apparently it wasn't.
Going back to the direction of the
ask the art guides,
the asking of the art guides to lead the conversation. I think we've talked well enough about this.
Well, I think it's an interesting topic.
She's a goofball who should be locked up, but
well,
but there are all kinds of artists that
there's
do.
There's a lot of artists that are goofballs.
Is it art? I've got to argue yes, but let's move forward with the conversation.
All right, so I am going to go with the inspiration this time. We'll see what your thoughts are on this.
Which the quote is, or
invade neighboring states of privacy.
Invade neighboring states of privacy. What does that make you think? Why would you pick that one?
Well, I picked that one because, to me, this is like the topic of exactly what we're talking about. Like, she's saying that's okay. Like, that's what was her inspiration. That was okay. She captured these people. She used their pictures, their stories in order to create art. And that's why I picked that, because I thought, gosh, that's interesting then.
But again, I think that invading somebody's privacy is a invasion of privacy, and I think that invading someone's privacy is a declaration of war.
Well, she apparently got away from it, or got away with it.
Maybe in...
I don't know how, I don't know when she was around. I'm not even sure.
I don't know anything about her, but...
Well, do you have a better topic that you would like to discuss?
Well, I don't know. I just think it just seems like...
Well, I just think it's an interesting topic in regards to art because, artists are constantly doing that. Artists are constantly going into a place but
artists aren't constantly breaking into somebody's hotel room and taking photos.
Not breaking in there.
How the hell did she get in?
She's giving them room service. She goes in. She's like, "Oh, this is a really cool picture. I'm going to take this picture."
But when was the last time you saw a maid or someone working in hospitality coming into your space with a camera?
Okay, well, let's talk about it. What it made me think about this was the other night you were watching this video, and it was driving me insane listening to it. But this guy is taking videos of a building. He's videoing this building. He's in public property. And the owner comes out, and he is pissed. This is my building. You can't take pictures.
Well, that's a First Amendment right.
How is that not, then? How is it different?
Well, it's different because, number one, she's not on public property. She is. She's
out in parks and places like that.
Now, again, if you're in public property at a park, and somebody's walking their dog... Again, I don't know that I would want somebody just taking random pictures of me if I was out at a park or something, but that's not what you're talking about. That
is what I was talking about in the beginning. But when she was people watching, she's going out to public places.
Okay, but what you're saying is she's at a hotel. She's working room service. She's working hospitality. When you're doing that type of job, the expectation is that you're helping someone, you're accommodating their stay, you're being you're being a hospitable host to a guest that's paying to stay in your hotel. You're not going in there with the camera taking pictures of their of their personal items
Well, they obviously probably didn't know.
While you're on the clock. And you're probably going to be in worse trouble if you're doing it off the clock. I mean, people have gone to jail for this.
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe she was doing it out in the lobby or places like that.
I
still don't understand how it's okay to do that in a public, like that guy was videoing that guy's property. I don't know. I get it. You're in a public place and whatnot, but if a guy that owns a building asks you not to do it.
There's a big difference between standing on a sidewalk. It's just like when they do Google Earth or Google Maps or whatever, and the Google truck goes by, and they got the big picture on the top, and they take pictures of all the streets. They're taking pictures of everybody's property from what they can see on the street. If I can stand in the middle of the street and look over at your house, I mean, there's nothing that prevents me from looking at your house. But there's a big difference between standing on the sidewalk and taking a picture of somebody's house and going into a hotel room and using my job to break in to take pictures of your personal items.
Well, and maybe she asked the people. I have no idea. I think it's...
Well, okay. Based on what you've said, you had an idea.
I mean, she says she just, like the stories that she said, gave an example of when she went into this room and there was a nightgown laying and she took a picture. And
I don't know. I just think it seems illegal, you know.
Maybe. Or maybe it just was acceptable back then and now it's not. But again, I don't know. I have no idea when she was around as an artist or when she was popular or...
You did the research. I didn't know about this card, so...
Well, I just wanted your opinion.
I think I've given a lot of opinions today so far.
You always give your opinion. That's nothing new.
That's nothing new.
Well, you pick one.
Well,
what we talked about that one, so it's really, I mean, it kind of is.
I think for me, the work is the one that makes me think about things that are a little bit topical in the world and life. Distance makes the heartbreak stronger.
I don't get that. So you can go ahead and...
You don't get that.
Expand on it. How would distance make it stronger?
Heartbreak.
Yeah.
Stronger.
Yes.
Well, when you're far away from someone, then it breaks your heart.
Well, to me, it's talking about like heartbreak already existing, and so distance would not make that harder or stronger for me. That would make it easier for me to get away from you.
But to me, it's like, but I think, okay, but you're looking at it from the context of trying to get away from someone.
Yeah.
I'm looking at it from the context of you wanting to be with someone, and it's hard when you're far away. So, like when I was living in North Carolina and we started talking, you know, that distance, I mean, although we were building connections, that it was difficult. Now living in Iowa, my youngest children live in North Carolina. That distance between their life and my residence and all of those things, I mean, that breaks my heart. You know, when like today, you know, there's an event coming up at my son's school. They have a Donuts with Dad Day, and you know the teacher sends me because we're talking about the dates and the things, and I'm flying to go see him for this event. But the teacher's saying, well, that Hank had said, you know, I don't know if my dad's going to be able to make it because he lives in Iowa, and it just
and they changed the days on you, right?
They did change the days, but again, it was like that's not the point. The point is that the story of Hank saying my dad can't make it because he lives far away, and that distance, it doesn't get healed by, you know, being able to talk on the phone or FaceTime or Zoom calls or any of those things. it's still hard, and distance, breaks your heart when you can't be there with loved ones, and we want to be able to go everywhere. We want to be able to see everything. We want to be able to experience everything. We want to, and that was the one thing that Hank had called during the day. This is new information to you. Apparently, there is a daddy-daughter dance that's, I think, this weekend. And Hank was like, you can come and do the daddy-daughter dance now with her, and then do the donut thing with me. Well, number one, I'm coming to do the donut thing with you. I'm not doing the daddy-daughter dance with Etta because she's not in that school yet.
Right.
She does. You can't just show up with nobody that's connected to. I think you got to be in, at least go to some form of school there.
Yes.
And he didn't.
He thought because he went to school there that you could still do the
I think that his thought was that the girls in his class in the kindergarten, that they're going with their dad, so Etta should be able to go with me. And he again, it's being young and not understanding and those things, but the distance of that, and him wanting to correct that, him wanting to find a solution.
Yeah.
And I think there are lots of times in our lives we try to find solutions to distance, whether that's, how do we get from here to there? How do I go in and do things and visit things and see things, and whether it's something heavy like I've described, or just being able to go to an art museum. Well, there are ways to visit things virtually, and one of those, like the other week you said, well, one of the benefits of COVID, that's one of the benefits of COVID. There are even more ways to do things virtually now than we've ever had before, whether that's working from home or visiting museums and seeing art and experiencing things. But
it's also created this loneliness in our nation and disconnection, and so yeah, there's obviously two sides to that. But
there's two sides to every story.
Same thing with the distance thing. I think I'm grateful that we were distant in the beginning, because I do think we had to, we had to communicate about everything and learn about each other and whatever before. I think that it helped us in the relationship, from the relationship perspective, drastically.
Well, I think it helped us really develop a relationship that was based upon being friends and just relying on communication and talking and all of those things that I think that a good relationship should be founded on, and not so much, social things or physical things or other sorts of things that get in the way. It's not your friends and my friends, or going out to events, or, whatever. It's the only thing that we had was sitting on the phone and, chatting about things and all of, wherever the conversation went, that's where it went. It was kind of like this, except all the time.
It was all the time.
Anyway.
All right. Well, I think we've exhausted the Sophie cow card.
All right.
But
moving on. What's the next thing, Pod Boss?
Well, we're moving right into Journey into the Archives.
Journey into the Archives, the greatest thing since sliced bread, invented right here in the great state of Iowa. And the Journey into the Archives featured
Judy, Chicago.
Judy, Chicago. Very much a feminist. Has some very strong views of the world and life and things like that. And I think that I appreciate Judy Chicago a lot more now than I did when I first learned of Judy Chicago.
Because
I think that, it was just that, like, she just seemed so radical. She seemed so...
She was definitely ahead of her time. Like we're going through the feminist and all this movement of feminism right now. And,
right.
like, she would have fit in... Her art would have fit in well right now.
She's still around.
Well, I understand, but the art that she was developing then, like, she was definitely ahead of her time.
Right. Well,
people were... She was not popular with people. They didn't love her.
She was not popular, but I think that over time her ideas have gained steam. I think that many artists look at her as a example, she's an
inspiration to a lot of people,
right? And I think
women, minorities. She really wanted to advocate for.
Okay, you can say that she's beloved by women and minorities, but don't forget that I'm a white guy and I find her inspirational. I mean,
I'm not saying just women and minorities. I think that was her focus. She talks about that being her, like, she had a problem with what arts museum, Museum of Fine Arts,
Museum of Modern Arts.
Like, she was talking about how it's just this male dominated, and it continued to be that.
It was, and it's I have never been to New York to go to the Museum of Modern Art, so I can't really say what it is or what it isn't. I know that the argument had always been that not just specifically that museum. I think it was just the overall impression of what museums are and was that these are institutions that dominate their collections with white, Protestant, straight guys that make paintings of women or whatever, and they they rule the roost when it comes to dominating the art scene, and they kept women out, they kept minorities out, they kept everybody else out, and it was just kind of their thing. And anything that wasn't white Protestant man perspective, get it the hell out of here. And I think that she, along with many others, brought a lot of attention to the fact that look at the collection. And I think that when we go to collections, when we go to art museums, it's not just Western culture. It's not just art of, for example, in Kansas City. Kansas City has a huge collection of artworks from around the world. They have artworks that represent every country, every nation, every perspective, black, every white, period, women.
I remember it being very well diversified as far as women, men, minorities.
Right. I think we've talked about this before. I believe that there's room for everybody at the table to be able to get their perspective out. I think that the Asian perspective should be spoken. I think the male and female, the black, the white, the Jewish, the Christian, the Muslim,
right.
Whatever the background, it shouldn't matter if I'm Buddhist or if I'm Methodist. What matters is this is my perspective. This is the art of what I think, and it's got a spot. And if it's good, it should be included, regardless of if it's a statue of Buddha or a statue of Abraham Lincoln.
Right.
It should be, I don't know what that means.
I've never seen that before.
This
is only recording, so it's not like...
I don't know where the hell that comes from. I don't know. I'll have to...
you're just recording, so it can't be coming from... It's not like it's live. It's not like you're... But that's the first...
I don't know.
Well, I think... And I haven't been to many museums, obviously, but the ones that I've been to, I feel like is a good representation of the things that she seemed to be fighting for. And would you say that you obviously are much more experienced when it comes to that? Do you feel like that's shifted?
I think it somewhat depends upon where you're going to a museum. I think that in American museums that I've experienced, I can say yes, that they're very diverse, that you have a perspective of blacks, and Asians, and whites, and all of these different perspectives and representations and genders and orientations and all the other things. Whether you're talking about the LGBTQ community, you're talking about the black community, you're talking about the white community, you're talking about this community or that community or the local community or the, whatever it is. I think that a lot of art museums in the U.S. that I have visited are pretty good at trying to be inclusive with a lot of things. Now, I will also say that I've been to art museums in Europe, and some are very diverse and some are very white Christian perspective. And that, I'm not saying that, get rid of all that stuff and buy some other stuff or trade it out and whatever. But I do think that when you go to an art museum and you feel like, okay, this is something that I can identify with, or there's a hook, then I think that captivates people. It moves people. It's valuable to people. If I walk into a museum and I'm like, this has nothing to do with me. I'm not open to this at all. I think that there are museums out there that, that have different sorts of values for different sorts of reasons. Going to the Holocaust Museum is a whole lot different than going to the Portrait Gallery in Washington, D.C. And those are just different experiences. They're about different things. They're supposed to be. They're both moving in very different ways. I'll just leave it at that. And I think that the art museum should be a place where different cultures, different arts, different ways of doing it should be represented and paid homage to. The best of the best of African masks, the best of Native American headdresses, the best examples of portraits, the best landscapes, the best of the Baroque, the best of the Gothic, the best of the Mayans and the Incas, the best of whatever it is that we're looking at. And those pieces are the pieces that should be in the premier museums or small galleries or anything.
Well, I think small galleries, like there may be like a common theme or whatnot that they're trying to present, and that may be the audience that they want to capture. And so I think that can be different. But I think that like the Kansas City Museum that we
Nelson Adkins,
yeah, like that to me, like you're looking at a whole different ballgame when it's that big. Like you need to encompass different.
Well, and again, the Nelson Adkins Museum, which is a huge sprawling out thing, or the Smithsonian museums or whatever, they're all different and unique, is very different from the Des Moines Art Center, or some small town art gallery or art museum or art display. It's going to look different. It's going to have different artists in it. It's going for a different audience, whether it's more broad or more focused or whatever it might be. At the same time, I think that you can go into a very specific sort of art experience, art gallery, art museum, You know, and there could still be some really great artworks and art pieces that are there that represent the best of that specific thing. You know, whether you're talking about like the Buffalo Bill Cody Historical Museum, or you know, a personal collection, or what have you. But
Well,
anyway.
she definitely was ahead of her time with the type of art. I think it's funny. Like, the interesting things I found about her is that, like, she talks about working in your video, she talks about working in an auto body shop and like the experience that she had from that and how she used that in her career.
Well,
Like,
she didn't work in an auto body shop. She was taking classes in auto body.
Okay, she was taking classes.
So in order for her to be trained to do some of the things that she was wanting to do, she had to learn body work and how to paint and do those things like individuals in the industry. And when she was the only female in the group of guys that was going through to learn, you know, auto painting, well, like, she was there for a reason, and she was there to do her job, and she had to hold her own, and she wasn't going to be pushed around or anything else, because she had a goal. And I think that takes a lot of charisma. It takes a lot of self strength and perseverance and willingness to say, you know what, I'm not going to let somebody make me feel uncomfortable enough not to do something or learn something.
Right.
And fortunately, times have changed a little bit, but I mean, shoot, you can still find those sorts of things happening in community colleges and high schools and all kinds of places in our world today, where I'm sure that whether it's somebody that's from the LGBTQ community doesn't feel comfortable taking that class, or somebody that's black doesn't feel comfortable going to this place or doing that thing or being there. And I think that that's also the thing with the art museum. If there's something there for everyone, where everyone's included and everybody feels like they're seen and that they're welcomed, and I'm welcomed because, boy, I can see these artworks that are from my community, that are about me, about my past, about my whatever. It makes it a lot easier to go in there and to experience it. And it helps when there's something for everyone. It helps us understand where everybody else is coming from, because you get to experience all those things. So somebody that might be closed off to learning about Asian sculpture, they might get hooked in there by looking at these paintings or these artworks or these things over here. But wow, oh, look at that.
Right.
Like, I never knew I would like that so much. And then all of a sudden, they're experiencing and appreciating something that they never really intended to appreciate, or wouldn't have appreciated if they didn't have that experience.
She talked about learning or using fringe techniques in that video, and that was one thing I have no idea what.
So it would be like using auto body, like a painter using auto body techniques. She did metal smithing, she did pottery, she did needlepoint, she did like more decorative sorts of things for the. She did a big piece, a giant table. It's a giant triangular table, called the dinner party.
Right.
And in that piece, there was needlework. They were creating the silverware and the plates and the glazings and all of the things that went along with the making of the cups and the placemats and the grout and the work that was done on the flooring and all of those things that went into that particular project. All of those things would be an example of that sort of
fringe
technique. Like you don't oftentimes see crocheting and needlework and that sort of thing as a part of a major museum piece, but she incorporates all of those things into a lot of her work.
Such as the taping that she learned in auto body school.
Right.
You brought up the Guerrilla Girls, and
we don't know if she's in it or was in it.
So this is just your your intuition.
It's more of a theory than a fact.
Just because of her personality and what the Guerrilla Girls represented.
Yes. You
thought she would probably.
I thought that with Judy Chicago, she was very much into a lot of the same sorts of things that the Guerrilla Girls were into. They were both wanting women and blacks and LGBTQ type representation in the museums. They were both fighting for a lot of the same causes, which makes me think that she might have been in there maybe as a major contributor or maybe a minor contributor. I think that the Guerrilla Girls phased out a little bit, but I think that they maybe with the Me Too movement, they kind of came back into the spotlight with a couple of things where it was kind of like, yeah, we've been telling you that this has been going on and you're not listening to us. We've been talking about this for decades.
Yeah.
I think they may have resurfaced a little bit, but again, it was always the idea that they were undercover, that they were covert, that they were guerrilla. Guerrilla in the sense of, the underground war type sense of the word, which is, I think, it's kind of the double entendre of what they're doing. But anyway, it's far-fetched, but very possible at the same time. So I don't know.
Makes sense. Interesting. I like how you tied those two together.
I try to do things.
You do.
It makes sense. If nothing else, in my own mind. And I should do a video just on the Guerrilla Girls, as a matter of fact, but I just...
Yeah, it's kind of a cool, the small portion of it that you put in that, I thought was interesting. Along with that dinner party that you kind of brought up, that piece of art, I thought, holy, that was intense.
Lots of involved pieces and parts, and that's, again, one of those things where, and we've spoke about this before, a lot of times we think of the artist is the artist, and that's it. Where it takes a team of people to make the artist the artist. It all falls under Judy Chicago. It's all Judy Chicago's name, and, it's all her, but it's not all her. She uses craftspeople and creators and artisans and all kinds of other...
So she had a team of people working on the dinner party.
Right.
Do you know how long it took to create the dinner party?
I don't know. I'm not off the top of my head.
I would be curious to know.
There's just
so much detail into each person that, first of all, the people that she placed at certain tables, and then the art that represented them, and then how she brought in the floor. There's just so many. You don't know how many people worked on it with her.
I don't know off the top of my head. Maybe I have it written down in my notes and stuff. It's somewhere. But that is not something that stuck with me. How many years ago did I make this video?
2.
2 years ago.
I didn't dive deep into the
But still,
archives.
I can't remember every fact from years and years ago. But I do know that it was a huge undertaking that took lots of people with lots of skills and lots of artistry to be able to pull it off under her direction. And I think that a lot of times people like her get underappreciated because, did you really make this all yourself? Well, but does that really matter that you made it all yourself?
She had a vision.
Her vision, exactly. And that, that's kind of the important thing, that she organized and orchestrated the whole thing to get created. And I believe it's at the Brooklyn Museum of Art now. They've created a room for it, I believe. I could be wrong on the location, but
As creepy as it seems, I think that's what's cool about Sophie Calle as well. Like her vision of taking those photographs and then creating these stories. Like she came up with these visions in her mind. Same with Judy, Chicago. Like with those artists that she placed and what were represented there. I as creepy as she was, I thought it was cool what she did with her stalking and people watching.
I think it's cool what she did with her stalking.
With the people watching. Like,
I mean, this wasn't just going to the mall and watching.
I'm talking about the people watching part, like where she went into the public park, the parks. But I do think it was creepy when she said in the video, she talks about getting attached to these people and then wanting to go deeper and learning more about them. And then I was like, okay, I'm out. Like that is way invading in people's privacy. But I would love to look at the photographs and see what stories she created from those. I think that would be interesting. Both of them, regardless, were not highly popular people based on, they were very sexual, like Judy Chicago and a lot of her art. She talks about in art school, they hated her color and they hated, what was the other thing? They hated her color and what she focused on in the art. So
put vaginas on her stuff. Well, she did a whole series of things on
color and imagery. They hated both of those things about her in art school.
And again, I think that her.
But that's what defined her to me. Like
right.
They hated that. It just shows you, like, same thing with kids. Like, you don't know what's going to become popular. You don't know like what's a gift and what's not. Like they hated that. They thought she was awful in art school, but then look at what she did and what type of movement she created.
And I think that that's also kind of her personality, though. She's a very loud, if you've ever heard like an interview with her, she's not
opinionated.
Yeah, she's got strong views, and I think that sometimes a lot of times women are with strong views are looked down upon, but men with strong views can be looked down upon. But you come across as being a blowhard that's just whatever. But at the same time, she knew what she wanted to do.
She stuck to her guns and look where it got her.
And I think that she should be commended for what she was able to accomplish at a time when
authenticity.
There wasn't a whole lot of things in place that were going to say, let her speak, put her in the museum, show her work. There weren't she was the one that was, there are a lot of people that are being recognized and viewed and their artwork is out there thanks to her work, thanks to her voice,
leading that movement,
and thanks to her being able to be strong enough to say, look, we have a view too, now you're going to hear it. And yeah, those guys that you have in your gallery, there's another perspective out there. And I'm not saying that the Vermeers should be thrown in the garbage, but I also think that there's a place for a lot of other views and perspectives in the art museum, as I've outlined.
Yeah.
Enough. So.
Yeah. I really love that when with the art museums that I went to, just the variety of artists, genres, all the things, like especially not being exposed to that up to that point.
Yeah.
So
you're welcome.
I've only been to 2.
I got you in 100% of the museum.
Woohoo!
What? I'm batting 1,000.
Wonderful.
I heard I was watching a video thing and somebody said batting 100.
100.
Yeah.
Did you correct that? This is something you're watching. That's
I was watching a thing, and they're like batting 100. I'm like,
I'm surprised you knew that was wrong.
I've watched baseball.
Well,
I know how a batting
outside of your
average.
wrestling and WWF and Kevin Nash, I don't know. It's a majority of.
I mean, I am a Baltimore Orioles fan, but that doesn't say a whole lot. But I have watched a lot of baseball, and I appreciate baseball.
What's a good batting average?
1,000 is the best you can do.
Well, that's the best, but I'm just asking you what a good batting average is.
I think
Exactly.
I think like.
You better stick to art.
What do you think a good batting average is?
What my batting average was.
What was your
bet? I don't know.
What was your batting average?
I have no idea. I didn't keep stats. I didn't do anything. I never knew my stats.
This sounds like an excuse. I don't keep track of the numbers. I don't know.
I don't. I have never, and I
think if you're batting 600-700, you're phenomenal.
Well, yeah.
You're a Hall of Famer. I mean, I think, if you're batting, I mean, I think they said that Babe Ruth batted 500.
I don't.
I mean, maybe even less than that. Yeah. But they also say that he struck out more than he hit. But when he hit, he cranked him. There was also another story that I heard about Ty Cobb, who Ty Cobb was an asshole, but probably, in my view, one of the greatest baseball players that ever lived. Not a very nice person, but a hell of a baseball player. And because it was during some sort of interview, I guess, that they said, well, you can't hit home runs like Babe Ruth. And he said, anybody can hit home runs. That's not how you play baseball. You want to keep the ball in play. That's the whole object of the game, not to hit home runs. And they said, well, that's probably just because you can't do it. And he said, pitch to me. And every single pitch, boom, 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 bombs everywhere. He wanted to hit doubles and triples. That was his. Well, that's how he felt the game should be played, not hitting home runs.
I think it depends on the situation, but I think both are just as valuable depending on what's happening. But consistency is obviously, if you're hitting a home run every once in a while, or you're just hitting singles and doubles are much more.
Well,
like all the time. But,
obviously the home run is guaranteed points on the board. But, if you have people on.
Runs on the board.
What did I say?
Points.
Well, it's still, the number is the point, the score. It's putting a score on the scoreboard.
Sure.
I don't know.
That's not a point.
Okay. It is a point.
It's not a point. It's a run.
Okay.
This is funny because if you correct me all the time, this is me giving you a taste of your own medicine.
No, it's like if
100%.
If I score in wrestling, if I score a takedown, it's a takedown, but it's still points.
Well, those are called points in wrestling. They're not called points in baseball. Big difference.
Well,
yes, you are clearly a wrestler. It's okay.
I never said I wasn't.
Well, I don't even know that you're a wrestler because I've yet to see any videos or anything.
I'll get out the tapes. Get out the old VHS tapes. Let you show you.
Yeah.
What it was all about.
Mm-hmm. I'm sure you were just like Kevin Nash in that respect too.
I was not like Kevin Nash. He was a basketball player.
You didn't tell me that.
He played at Vanderbilt.
Did he score a lot of points?
He scored baskets. we call those baskets.
No, they're points.
Oh, then yes.
All right, let's wrap this up.
Okay.
All right, well, thank you for watching. Please continue to hit like, share, subscribe. We really would love you to hit the subscribe button because that's what kind of makes the biggest impact for us. And if not, just keep watching and following.
If you don't, then okay.
Well,
Whatever.
Some people are just not going to hit the subscribe button.
Come on. You can do it.
All right. Well, have a good night, day, whatever.